Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division 2 video today by me, Vulcan. In this one I have for you a preview of the 6th South African Armoured, a new division available in the upcoming Tribute to Italy DLC. As a disclaimer, Eugen has given me free access to the DLC, so a big thanks to them. Also, please remember that this is an early preview and what you see may be subject to change. If you'd like to read the description on the right hand side for the division, then feel free to pause the video and take a look, but I'm going to be jumping straight on in. So we'll be having a look at all of the units available and then putting together a quick deck. So let's start in the Recon tab. Alright, so the first unit, your standard 2-man Recon squad with the exceptional stealth, very high optics, but this is probably going to set the scene for the majority of this deck, whereby they have their unique uniforms and they also have unique camos and markings on their vehicles. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I'll make sure to point it out as well. But yeah, if I miss any, definitely make sure to take a good look at these camos and stuff when you get your hands on it, if you get your hands on it, because it's all really, really awesome. Nice attention to detail. But yeah, first of all, your standard Recce squad, 4 available in A, 8 in B, 12 in C, can be brought in with the MMG carrier, which has the Vickers and the Bren, the 2-inch carrier, which has the 2-inch mortar and the Bren, and then there's also the Willys truck there available to be brought in as well. Next up we have the Natal Scouts. These have 4 Thompson submachine guns, 4-man squad, 5, 10 and 15 availability, and their transports are universal carriers, Willys MB. They've got the white scout car and the Stuart Recce. Now these are quite interesting, particularly the white scout car, because this is a fast 50 cal armoured vehicle with a radio. So actually going to be a really, really nice recon option for sure, and you can get quite a lot of them. The Stuart Recce, it's alright, but it's not going to be like as useful because it's not as fast, but it still has high optics. I think the white scout car though has very high optics, so the same as other vehicles in the Recon tab, like light vehicles in the Recon tab usually. So that's really nice. Anyway, there is standard scouts, which are British scouts. They come with the 2 Stens and the 2 Lee Enfields. They can be brought in with the universal carrier, but that's about it. That universal carrier does have recon. Then there's the Natal Scouts with Piats. Again, they can be brought in with the white scout cars. They get 2 Thompson, 4 Lee Enfields, and a Piat. They're a 6-man squad. 3, 6, and 9 availability. Makes these actually an interesting squad to bring in. Could definitely supplement sort of Piats and like close range AT early on in the game. And then you've also got your standard scouts of Piat, which again 3, 6, and 9 in availability, but you only get the universal carrier for these. So in general, the South African unit is going to be better here. Can get Greyhounds in both phase A and B, 4 in A, 8 in B. And this is your standard Recon Greyhound, 40 points with the 37mm gun, 70 mils of penetration. A nice vehicle for zooming up the road and sniping transports at the start, and also relatively decent infantry support with that 50 cal. So yeah, nice if you need fast radios on the front line. Then there's the Stag Hound. Stag Hound is a nice sort of armoured recon vehicle because again it is very fast, similar to the Greyhound, but it doesn't really benefit from having that 50 cal. So yeah, not as really as good. Like even though it has 2 30 cals, it's not really as good as one 50 cal because the 50 cal pins a lot quicker. But 5 and 9 availability for those. If you prefer Stag Hounds over Greyhounds, then you know, might be the only reason to take them. Then there's also a Sherman 5 Recce. This is just a Recon Sherman for 90 points. 3 available in A, 6 in C, or in B, sorry. Does have radio, recon optics are high. Could be nice as like supplement medium armor to maybe accompany other armor, or I guess could it also accompany infantry at like close range engagements. Speaking of infantry, let's move on to the infantry tab. So we've got Assault Pioneers to start. 9 and 18 availability. These are your standard 4-man squads with flamers that the British often get, but in this case, of course, they are South African. They can be brought in with the Carrier Command, which is a universal carrier with a Bren, the M3 half-track, which has a 30 cal, and there's also an M3A1 half-track that has a 50 cal that can be brought in. And again, I believe these all have unique camos, so definitely something to point out there on these vehicles. Yeah, just your standard flamers anyway. Then we got some South African converted gunners. The converted gunners are basically infantry that used to man AA. They've been kind of like pushed onto the front line with rifles in their hands. So they are disheartened as they don't really want to be there. 12, 24 and 36 is the availability. Kind of just meat for the grinder, honestly. That's what these are for. Then you got the field engineers, 9, 18 and 27 in phase C. I think taking these in the late game is really nice because you get a lot of value out of this TNT. But again, the transports are really varied here, and you can also get the Bedford truck, which also has its own new skin. So very cool indeed. Moving on, we have the engineer leader in phase A. 3 of those available. Can be brought in with the Stuart Command, which is basically a Stuart with a 30 cal and a 50 cal. So similar to the Stuart Recce, but this one only costs 15 points. So 15 points for a 40mm armoured 50 cal vehicle is not terrible at all, so definitely something to consider. Then there's Motorized Rifles, South African Motorized Rifles. These, again, can be brought in half-tracks, M3 half-track, M3A1 half-track, and also the Bedford trucks. 8 available in A, 16 in B. These are better than the British Motorized Rifles because they get Thompsons instead of Stens, so their damage at closer range is actually a lot better. Then you got the rifles, the British rifles, seen these before. 2 Stens, 7 Lianfields and the Bren there. 9 in A, 18 in B, and 27 in C. All rifles across the board for Western divisions did get an availability buff lately, so that is something to think about when selecting these. But ultimately, the South African rifles are better because they have Thompsons. So you get an extra 0.2 damage, as you can see there, on the Thompson. And it also has that extra accuracy that the Sten doesn't have. So, yeah, overall, you're going to be doing more damage at closer ranges with the South Africans, whilst you're doing the same damage at range. So you might as well take them in their stead, like in the stead of the British, that is. Transports for these is just Bedfords. Moving on to the Motorized Rifle Leader. Again, they can be brought in with the half-tracks and the Stuart Command. This is a 4-man squad which does have a Bren and smoke grenades. So this is more of a utility-based leader as opposed to the engineer leader, which has those like HE close range. I do kind of like engineer leaders because they can defend themselves quite well, or if not defend themselves, at least trade with other infantry units. But the Motorized Rifle Leader having that smoke is actually kind of nice. Yeah, they can be brought in with those armoured vehicles, but only in phase A. 3 of them, 1 vet. Then there's Rifle Leaders for the Brits. These can be brought in A, B and C. Can be using the Carrier Command, which is, again, just a 5-point universal carrier with a Bren in it. Then there is the Rifle Leader for the South Africans, which has a Piat. 2 Thompsons, 2 Lianfields and the Piat there. Good if you need that extra Piat to support your infantry. Then there's the Rifles of Piat, the British variant with the 8 Lianfield and the 2 Bren with the Piat. 9 available in A, 18 in B, and then there's the South African variant, which has the 2 Thompson submachine guns there, as you can see, instead of 2 Lianfields. So you're trading like 0.2 damage on the Lianfields for the extra 1 damage on the close range 100 meter range engagements. But yeah, these are available in A and B. Moving on to the tank tab. Tank tab is full of Shermans and Fireflies. You've got the Sherman 5s, which are manned by the South Africans. These have the 100mm front armour with that classic 90mm penetration. 5 available A, 10 in B, 15 in C, so again, pretty standard stuff, 80 points. You've got the Command variant, which has the radio capability. Then there's a Sherman 2A, which is basically the Sherman 76, which has the 76mm gun with the 130mm of penetration. 8 of these available in B and 12 in C. Do have 1,750 meter range, that's also something to point out. Then there's Fireflies, and there's a lot of Fireflies. 15 available in Phase C. That's a lot. You could definitely get away with upvetting these as well. If you upvet them to just like 1 vet, you still get 12, and then you can 3-vet them. And that getting that rate of fire up with the 170mm of penetration means that you're going to have some serious firepower against Axis armor in the late game. And the Firefly 5C is actually available in Phase A at quite high availability. You get 5 on a card, and the veterancy is also very generous. So probably going to want to take both of these Firefly cards for sure. Moving on, support tab. 2-inch mortars. There is both South African and British 2-inch mortars. Useful again for sort of like close range infantry fire support. But you're never going to want to have these in a direct fire engagement, so you're going to want to micromanage these at close range, which is probably why they're not very desirable. If you could maybe, I guess, fire at will them, you sort of bring them up behind your own troops, put them onto the fire at will smart order. Maybe they'll be useful, but it depends. Anyway, carrier command for both of them, I believe, is the only other choice of transport. Vickers HMG, 6, 12 and 18 available across the phases. Nothing really good to see here. The Vickers kind of just sucks. And the British one is basically exactly the same, except with a British crew. There's a Bedford supply. You get 3 cards of these, 2, 4 and 6 across the phases. There's a Sherman 1B, which is quite nice. This gives you the 2,000 meter range HE gun. 2, 4 and 8 availability. Great for engaging enemy AT weapons and support guns from range. And then we move on to the commanders. So there's a Jeep Commander. Looks really cool. The Dingo, which has its own unique camo. And then the Sherman 5 as well as a commander. Alright, moving on to the anti-tank tab. P-up. There is 6, 12 and 18 available across the phases. These do come with 2 Thompson submachine guns, which means they're going to do a little bit of damage if they get bumped into. But yeah, Piets, notoriously unreliable due to the 50% accuracy. Then we have a brand new unit, the 6-pounder Portee, which is really cool. It's just a 6-pounder on a truck, and it has the 115mm of penetration, 12 round per minute rate of fire. Honestly, these could be pretty good, and if you upvet them, you might be able to like use them as like ambushing forces. I think these upvetted could be really, really good. There is the standard 6-pounder, of course, for the South Africans, which do have the APCR as well. The transports for these is quite broad. You can get the Lloyd carrier, the M3 half-track, the Stuart Remy, and the AC Matador. Again, all of these having unique camos. Very, very nice indeed. There is a 6-pounder for the Brits as well, if you prefer a British crew. And then there's a very interesting M10 here, the M10 Grouser. This has this optic on top, and what that means is that it can basically indirect fire. Has radio capability, so it can basically corrected shot at a distance. And the HE damage is 3.8, which is not too shabby. And it also maintains, obviously, its 130mm penetration at 1,750m range. So basically, while you're keeping these maybe hidden or like out of line of sight, you can use them for indirect fire instead of just having them sat around waiting for enemies to kind of push on you. So a very, very nice unit. You're going to have to definitely sacrifice some AT options if you're going to want to use them. 17 pounders are also available. Their shield, look at that, just lovely paint job on them. And they can come in with the Morris C8, which again has its own unique camo for this division. 2, 4, and 6 availability across the phases. Lovely stuff. Alright, into the Anteater tab. Stag Hound is available. The Stag Hound AA has 2 50 cals and a 30 cal that it can use. The 30 cal is pointed towards the ground. It's the whole gun there. And then of course it's got the 2 50 cals that it can use to attack aircraft. So there are 4 available in Phase A. As Bofors, again, unique camo. Can be brought in with the Stuart or the Morris C8. 3, 6, and 9 availability on those. And then you've got the Bofors 40mm, which is just the Bofors on the truck here. 1, 2, and 4 availability. Availability in this case kind of lets them down. Yes, this is like a fast unit that can get to different positions nice and quickly, but just the availability available on the standard Bofors is just so much better. And then we have the QF 3.7-inch 94mm anti-air gun. This thing is a beast. It has 190mm of penetration with 12 round per minute rate of fire. Now, admittedly, the accuracy is not that fantastic at all. Only 25%. But if something gets close to this, it's dead. It's very dead. The HE shells and the bullets there, the bullets being the ones that are fired at the aircraft, pretty decent. I think this is going to be a nice AA piece. It's not often you see the Western divisions get an AA piece like this, and now we have not only this, but also the one in the Task Force 45 as well. So yeah, 2, 4, and 6 availability can be brought in with the Stuart, the Matador, and the Matador supply. There is actually 40 of these available at the moment. I think that's probably a mistake that will get fixed. Moving on to the artillery. Spotters. We've got 3 available in Phase A, 6 in B. Can be brought in with the 2-inch carrier, the MMG carrier, and the Willies. As I always say for these 2-man recon squads in the artillery tab, they can be used to supplement when you don't have enough recon in the recon tab, particularly recon infantry. And they do also provide that radio, so that's why you'd use them. Artillery commander, 2 Thompsons, 8 Lee Enfields. You do get 81mm mortars, both South African and British, but they don't have radios, so that's unfortunate. But they do have the 25 pounder, the South African 25 pounder here. Again, a lovely array of transports. 3, 6, and 12 availability on these. There is the 4.5-inch 114mm howitzer. This thing is very cheap for what it is right now, I think. So I'm interested to see how these will perform. 3, 6, and 9 is the current availability for these. Yeah, I think both the availability and maybe the price will get nerfed on these. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, big guns. Everybody loves a big gun. We do have 4 cards of priests available. 2, 4, and 6. 105mm caliber Insta Division 2 is notoriously bad. Doesn't really quite have the same AoE effect as larger calibers. so it's okay if it direct hits, but otherwise it's a bit lackluster in comparison to other units. But having an self-propelled unit like this is nice for dodging counter battery, so there is the benefit of that. But then we have the BL 5.5 inch howitzer. This thing is a beast. 7.75 damage. It's going to be hitting hard, and 1, 2, and 4 availability. You can actually get 4 cards of these, which is technically like 16 140 mils. Artillery is going to get pretty crazy in tribute to Italy. Let's move on to the air tab. Mosquito. This is the Mark 16 Mosquito, which is Recon. Doesn't have any armament, just moves very, very fast. Does have medium resilience, not the worst Recon in the world, but I think Recon that goes this fast, kind of like the speed kind of gets the better of it a lot of the time, where you don't really have time to spot things long enough for you to hit them. Particularly when you're accompanying Recon aircraft with airstrikes, because the Mosquito would have flown over and past the unit it's trying to spot by the time the actual strike comes in behind it, unless you time it absolutely perfect. But it's going to be really hard with a Mosquito moving that fast. Anyway, moving on, we have the Baltimore available. This has the 4 227 kilogram payload. 2 available in A, 4 in B, 7 in C. There are 2 cards available with this, so you can technically have 14 of these Baltimores if you wanted to. Does have the array of 50 cals on it. Then we've got the Spitfire Mark V Trop. I believe this is the one that is supposed to be marked for the Australian, one of these. I think it's the Mark V here. The first one that you take is supposed to be an Australian one. It's the first Australian unit in the game. It's currently marked British, but yeah. Either way, it's here. And 2, 4, and 8 availability on those across the phases. There is also the Spitfire Mark IX available for the South Africans. This has 4, 8, and 12 availability. So you're actually paying a little bit more, but you get extra speed and availability. For the South Africans there, definitely showing up, that's for sure. Then we got the Hurricane Mark IV, which comes with the 150mm AT rockets, the SAP rockets there. These are the same that the Typhoon gets, so definitely deadly, but whether or not you'll be able to use these to great effect remains to be seen, because these move quite slow, and therefore AA is going to probably do a lot of damage to them before they reach their target. They do have the medium resilience though, because they are a Mark IV. Moving on, we got the Marauder Mark III. This thing has 4 454 kilogram bombs, which is actually a pretty nice payload, but availability is a bit rough. 1, 2, and 4 availability for the phases. Nice little picture of the woman on the front there, painted on by the crew. And yeah, unique markings once again, really cool. These Marauders are definitely very scary to shoot down. If you have a big blob of these, they can really take out fighters very quickly indeed. In this case, you can't really get enough of them to do that, but interesting thought. Then we have the Spitfire Mark VIII, which comes in with the 1 227 kilogram bomb and 2 113 kilogram bombs. There you go. And again, unique decals on this Spitfire. Very, very nice. 2, 4, and 8 availability on those fighter bombers. And there's your lot for the South Africans. So very, very pretty units. And I think there are some really nice sort of parts to this deck, particularly the reliance on Fireflies. We haven't had a division yet that has this many Fireflies, I don't think, other than maybe the first Panzerner. And they also get a ton of artillery. So I think that's what's probably going to be based around. Let's make a deck. So we're probably going to keep it balanced. I've been using balance for most of the decks so far in this DLC. And the primary reason for that is because I play team games. And Juggernaut can be useful if you specifically design a Juggernaut deck, but I think balanced decks are easier to play in general, which is why I make them for these previews. But yeah, let's go into the Recon tab. So I think what we're going to do is probably get some of these Natal Scouts with the white Scout car. I could do the Scout with Pia as well. I think what I'm going to do is this, and we're also going to do this. And then I'm also going to do a phase B of those as well. And I might give myself some Greyhounds. Because these white Scout cars, they're too good not to take. And they give you radio and recon. So they're really useful. Infantry tab is going to be a little bit hard, I think, to make. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to go with this. We're probably going to take the field engineers and see. That's definitely something I'm going to do. Just because having those TNT allows you to trade quite well in the late game. Then I think we will probably go for some of these rifles in phase A. We'll get the South African rifles and South African rifles with Pia. Just thinking about leaders. What leaders might I want? Something to also consider at this point. I think I'm going to do motorized rifle leaders in phase A. And I'm going to bring them in just with the Jeep, I think. And then in phase C, or phase B, sorry, we're going to bring in the rifle leader with the Pia. Yeah. I think I value smoke earlier than the HE here. Availability in the infantry actually isn't as much as I thought it was. We don't really have much to work with. So I might have to supplement my artillery tab to have some leaders in it. Let's take that out. We've got 2 cards of infantry in phase A currently. I'm going to do assault pioneers in B. And I think we're going to have to probably take both cards here, which is going to be 7 points. It's quite expensive. Might have to come back and mix it around a little bit. Motorized rifles don't seem necessary. Can these rifles be brought in with half tracks? That would be really nice. I mean, the motorized rifles can of course use 50 cals. So that might be a reason to bring them in instead of maybe the rifles of Pia early on. I think I'm going to do that. Having that 50 cal half track is very nice. But then we want to look at the late game. So later on, I'm thinking we do rifles with Pia in phase B then instead, and we do rifles in phase C. It's a lot of points spent on that. Right, we definitely want Fireflies upvetted, Firefly 5s upvetted. This tank tab is actually really cheap. We can do upvetted Sherman 2s in both phases as well. And then phase A will add some extra Shermans. Don't know if I need phase B Shermans as well. Seems almost unnecessary. But then again, it was free. We could also put in just like Sherman 5 leader actually. Yeah, we'll do that. Because that will supplement leaders a little bit. Okay, support tab. I'm going to go for the Dingo as our commander. It's almost like tradition to use the dingo or the lynx or whatever as the commander for me. I almost always pick it. Otherwise, do I need Sherman 1Bs and A? I think we probably could use them in A. Yeah, we're going to use them in A. I'm going to save space for supply. Definitely want to try these boys out. I'm going to bring them in A, and I'm going to bring them in B. I'm going to bring in the Pounder Portee guns in A as well, I think, with Veteran C. Late game, we're going to want plenty of 17 pounders. I'm going to use up the Morris C8s to bring those in. Anteater, definitely going to be using these 94 mils, so we'll bring in one card in C. We'll do a card in B with Bofors, which are upvetted, in phase A. Artillery tab, I do want to bring in artillery commanders. I'm going to use some 114 mil artillery in B. We're going to get some big guns in C. What else could we do? I kind of want to get some mortars in here as well. I might do some 81 mil mortars early on. You could really pack this out though with artillery. And then I think we just put the last 4 points in here though. So we do the Spitfire Mark IXs in A with maybe the Baltimores in A as well. With either the Hurricanes or the Spitfires in B. I think the Hurricanes might actually be worth trying because this payload is actually kind of nice. Like, it's going to kill medium tanks quite easily. It's also going to kill light tanks and any other pesky armor very easily for us. And by phase B, you might just be in a position where you can bring these in without being shot down by AA too much. Being shot at by AA too much. Alright. So, this is looking a little bit rough around the edges. I think the main issue here is probably going to be the infantry tab. I think what we're going to have to do, I cut the motorized rifle leader, we put in a Sherman command in phase A and use that to support the infantry directly, and then we pop in the phase A supply trucks, because the other artillery here come with supply trucks, whereas these can resupply the 81mm mortars. So I've got supply there, these bring their own supply. AA, I'd like to have more, but it's not super necessary. I think the anti-tank tab is fine. Having this many 17-pounders might not be necessary, just because we do have Fireflies, which technically are 17-pounders. Like, putting this into B actually might be a better idea. And then we have 2 points spare. And I think in the grand scheme of things, we're probably going to have to use extra supply when they update the fact that you can currently get 40 mass store supplies. Yeah, I'm probably going to need a second card of supply for this artillery. I think for now, I'm going to put the card, the extra 2 points we've got here, It's either the Spitfires or, I think, German 5 commands. Having plenty of these to hang about throughout the game gonna be really, really useful when we don't have any leaders in the infantry tab. And I'll have late game artillery commanders anyway. I might shift those to phase B, because having infantry commanders is useful because you can hide them in places where armor can't go. I think that's it. Yeah. Alright. 6th South African Armoured is complete. Nice. Well, this is a division that I think is going to be really fun to use. It relies a lot on artillery though, particularly in the M10s that have the indirect fire. And then also with like the sheer amount of like howitzers you can get is actually kind of nuts. The tank tab is really cheap, so that's also a big power point of this division. But yeah, I think there's a lot of effort gone into creating all of the artwork for this division, particularly like all the reskins of all the units is really cool. And the infantry looks really awesome as well, with those guys that have like the blue berets and a lot of the other South African units in there. I think this is going to be a really fun one to play, and it's not going to be a terribly hard division for people to play either, just because you do have so many Fireflies to deal with heavier armor on the Axis side, and then if that doesn't work out, you can always just artillery them to oblivion. Particularly in case of the M10, it's like, if you can't penetrate it, just indirect fire it. Gonna be interesting for sure. Yeah. Alright, well, that's it from me for today. I'm gonna leave it there. Just a reminder, I will be streaming 8 PM Thursday at on my Twitch channel. So make sure to come along. That's GMT UK time. And I'll be going through and playing some multiplayer games with the new divisions. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more Steel Division 2 content. That's it. I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.